as the talk goes on for people to unmute and get chatty. And a lot of our Zoom talks is 40 minutes of me going through slides and then take questions at the end. But we met with Lindsay yesterday and we went through some things and we thought, wait, this is so great. How can we replicate the conversation that's happening yesterday and bring it into today? So what we're gonna do, we have a little intro, take care of a little bit of our sponsors for tonight. And then we're gonna get in and talk about our inspiration for why this crazy art form took hold of us and our imagination, and get to hear from you guys too, if you've been inspired to try anything. It came up about the technology. You know, a lot of what we're doing for the ceramics on our nails is trying to understand technologies used in the past. So what are some of the tools we have? What are some of the questions you guys have about how did you do this or that? And then share with you some of our supply kit. So the technology used on the ceramics, but also the tools that will kind of blend into each other, and then end on some resources. I've got some ideas and resources for you, but Lindsay's got a fantastic one that I bet at the end of the evening is going to have a huge hit on their webpage. So share some ideas. And then we do post these often on Instagram or Twitter with a Majolica manicure, but I'm going to try and put a gallery together. But we also want to hear from anyone who has done any special ceramic for tonight. So hold your fingers, ladies. We'll get there in a minute. Any guys? They are most welcome, but I haven't seen anyone identify yet. But welcome to all. And pending that, MJ is going to kind of keep me honest on timing. So we'll get about 15 minutes for each of those sections. And let me share my screen just to take care of a little business on the front end. So welcome tonight to our Majolica manicure talk. And most of you are very familiar thanks to 2020 and Zoom features, but we will be using that chat feature quite heavily. So if you have questions, if you want to chat with someone else that is interested in the same things you are, go for it. And we will take some questions that way. But unlike most of our talks, we do hope to unmute, share some video, and get to hear from you guys. We won't be doing breakout. Quick temperature reading. How familiar are you with historic ceramics? Because some might be totally new to the topic. Some may be experts in their field. So if you want to give a thumbs up. These are reversed, aren't they? Well, that's not helpful. So ignore the words. Applaud if you're familiar just a little with historic ceramics, and get thumbs up if you are an expert. What are we finding? Oh, I'm seeing some. Woo. MJ, any reports?
I see several claps and a few thumbs up.
All right. Well, if historic ceramics are new to you tonight, do not worry. You do not need previous information about historic ceramics to enjoy the presentation tonight, but we hope to hit all the nerds too with their fantastic things they want to share about ceramics. So quite a range. Getting to know me and Lindsay a little bit. This is me in my former life, a lab manager at University of Kentucky, and worked a lot as a historic ceramic specialist, doing identifications, helping with some vessel analysis. This is our Henry Clay Estate privy, where we got millions of sherds of pieces of ceramic that came out of the ground and refitting them together. So my work at FPAN is not as close to the ceramics, but we are often fielding questions from the community and giving talks on archaeology, how it works, and how ceramics plays an important part of that. Lindsay, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I run the Ceramic Technology Lab at the Florida Museum of Natural History, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But my training in ceramics really started at Monticello with a certain Sarah Bonharper who's in the room. And so I worked there for a long time, and also with the Digital Archaeological Archive of Comparative Slavery, where I worked as an archaeological analyst. So cataloging artifacts and getting into the nitty-gritty of chronology and dating and all the different things you can learn about the past from pottery.
And Lindsay works in the lab that has a lot of, like, to me, are like the origin shards of where things were first named and first type cataloged. So I like to go there and touch them sometimes, or go visit them, and they're right there in the other room with you. So that's awesome. Okay, I wanted to give a plug for who I work for, the Florida Public Archaeology Network. We help save the state's buried past through education and outreach. So tonight we're talking a little bit of fun with the historic ceramics and material culture, but we do often get involved helping local governments and assisting our state's division of historical resources as well. So if you haven't heard of us before, check us out if you're in Florida. Lots of activities going on statewide, and very challenging for public archaeologists during a pandemic to do outreach, but we're really excited. Things like tonight were on our wish list of things to do this year should the pandemic continue into December, and look at it. Lindsay, you want to give a plug for the Tech Lab?
Yeah, so the Tech Lab is part of the Florida Museum of Natural History, which is part of UF. And we do three main things. So we have study collections, as Sarah was saying, that cover 5,000 years of pottery history in Florida. So from the very earliest pottery made in the southeastern US up until the mission period. And we do analyses in the lab of pottery and of clays. We host students like Emily, who's shown in the picture, who's preparing samples for laser ablation inductively coupled plasma mass spectrometry. So really, I know. So we do really technical analyses of pottery to figure out how it was made and all the sorts of things you can learn about pottery. And then we do a lot of outreach in different ways. So we have galleries and search tools on our website to help people identify artifacts. We do public events with children and other groups. On the right-hand side, there's this is a matching game where the tools and the decoration used to make it, you can pull them apart and then put them back together, match them up. So
cool, a good resource over at the Florida Museum. And why I was so excited that Lindsay could join tonight, because I sometimes know what I'm talking about, but Lindsay, wow, what a ceramic rock star. We're excited to have you with us tonight. First off, we're going to be using this word over and over and over, sherd, and sherd means a fragment of pottery. So if you even take a piece of your dinner plate and break it on the ground, now you have multiple sherds yourself in your own living room. So it's just our way of just calling it a unit, one broken piece. And sometimes for glass, we'll use fragments. And this might be also an Americanized version of broken pieces. If you've heard of shard, that's fine too, but we'll probably often be using the word sherd tonight. Here's some examples of some historic sherds. And then we're going to be talking a little bit about types of pottery. And this is not, the purpose of our lecture tonight is not to have you familiar and be able to classify and go out and work in a lab. We just want you to have fun with the aesthetics and just start thinking about how you might convey some of the different things, attributes we use in ceramic identification and translate that into other art forms, one being nails and manicures, but there could be other fabulous art forms, and often ceramics are borrowing from other art forms, so that can get kind of like cyclical in nature. So you might hear us say coarse earthenware, stoneware, refined earthenware, porcelains, and those just mean how, what kind of clay was used to source the ceramic, to make it, to shape it, and the firing temperature also is very specifically used in those differences. If you send us a picture of a broken sherd, a broken piece of pottery, and want us to identify it, the first thing I'm going to ask you is turn it sideways so we can see the clay, see what the paste is, what it's made out of. And then you've probably already noticed this because human brains like to try and identify and make order of things. there's a lot of different decoration types. And that's what also makes the manicures really fun is you might have done some hand painted, you might do some edged, but when you start getting into transfer printed and sponged and slicked, and we still can't figure it out, engine turned, if somebody can figure that out, that will be an amazing day. But some of these help archaeologists know what time the site dates to, what temporal changes, what cultural changes were taking place on a site, and why if you see a ceramic, do leave it in place, take a picture of it, stick a quarter by it so we can see the size and scale of it, but leave it be because it's part of this other story that's happening underneath the soil of who lives there, what changes happened, what happened over time at this one particular place. Also, you will never find a site that has these nice clean lines at all. It's usually jumbled up and all moving up and down a little bit, but gives you some idea of why archaeologists are talking to you about ceramics. So we wanted to get into some origin stories. Let me end the show so we can, oh, that didn't help. Stop share, which is probably just a good general button for me in life. Stop share. And we wanted to hear some origin stories from each other, but for some of you, if you have ever attempted a manicure based on a ceramic type, Lindsay, they've been hearing my voice for a while. You want to go first for your inspiration?
Sure. I think the first time I did it was when I was working at Monticello, and I go through phases with nail art because I find that it's not very conducive to a lot of the work that I do. So times when I'm doing more lab work or doing things that don't involve so much manual labor, I have more, like I know that I can keep nail polish on, so I'm more likely to do it. So, and then I found this kit that allowed me to do transfer printing on nails, and that just blew my mind. And I've been doing that ever since.
Well, we had joked with our nails what order we were going to go in, and I decided I'd do a bit of chronological manicures. And the first one I ever did wasn't even a ceramic at all. It's one of those magnetic nail polishes. So you paint it black. I even have it right over here. I can grab it quick enough. This isn't quite the same one, but it's got the same idea. It's the polish has some of the little metal flecks in it, and then you just put the magnet over, and you can even have magnets in different shapes, and it will have this really fun effect, kind of metallic and shiny. But I first got that nail polish right before SEAC, the Southeastern Archaeological Conference. It was in Jacksonville. The first thing that happened was they didn't have my room available, and the woman said, "What happened to your nails? Oh, it looks so cool." I'm like, "I'm glad you asked. This is metallic, magnetic, and does these cool things." And she upgraded my room, you guys. I had this huge, like 3-door suite all to myself. I thought, wait, telling people I'm an archaeologist is getting me nowhere, but these nails are really having a positive impact on my life. And then walking around the conference the rest of the time, showing people how the nails work and explaining the science behind it. Went too long before things clicked, and I thought, wait a second, if this is also part of my job as talking about different ceramics and science, how cool would it be to transfer it? At the time, I had the luck of having Kathy Deegan was teaching at Flagler a introduction to historic ceramic types, and I got to take her class. So we had like 200 different kind of sherds we were dealing with. We had to do a research project on one type and really dive down. So the one that I picked, just so you can see that current slide. Okay, so this is me in the middle of the lab taking her class. And you can see all the different types we'd have to check out. And just think of ceramics as the main tree of the trunk, and then splitting into all these different types based on all these different attributes. So I did my deep dive into San Luis Poly, and it's a distinctly Hispanic tin enameled ware I found it fascinating that there were different unions for people who painted the black stripes versus the green blobs. And the people that were paid higher were the black stripe folks, I think because of the precision versus maybe just anyone could walk in and start working on those green blobs. But I thought that was fascinating. And then we broke it into different types. These are all the different types of San Luis poly that we could find in the St. Augustine Ceramic Lab. And Nick McCullough helped me pull these out. And we just took this big, deep dive into all the different kinds. And I thought, well, that's a natural fit. And just looking at the different decoration styles and the different ways they would do the lines and the blobs and looking at the type collection. And that was part of my origin story of how I got going with making manicures out of ceramic types. Are there other folks with us today that have done one? Were you inspired to try? And was this your first time or have you done this before? And feel free to unmute and share your video if you're willing to show.
So I've done fun nail art before, but nothing ceramic inspired previously, at least not that I can recall. So I gave it a try today, but I work, my research is actually focused about 6,000 years ago. So I'm much more familiar with the pre-Columbian ceramics. So I went with the Isabela Polychromes from the coast of Ecuador, which is actually what I wrote my BA thesis on. So it's a cream, red, and black in a variety of configurations. And so that's my attempt at a ceramics inspired manicure.
That is fantastic. You may win an award too for oldest ceramic type represented on our little show today.
Well, so Guangala isn't as old as what my research is now, but it's about 200 BC to about 500 AD. So
yeah, I think you're still winning that entirely. And then were you inspired from individual sherds that you had seen, or were you looking at type collection?
So I drew some reference from this volume by a guy named Bushnell, who wrote in the 50s about the ceramics, and he was one of the first people who tried to do a typology of the polychromes, and related how different variations he thought were derived from a pelican design in many cases. So there's some zoomorphic designs that then get very heavily modified into geometric patterns, and so he kind of traced this out. That's where I drew from. This one is a little bit of a cheat. That design is actually, I used the polychrome base, but the black lines are actually from a broadline incised bowl design that we find at our current site, Buen Suceso, which dates between 3700 and 1425 BC. And this is a motif that we find repeated over and over at the site, and which, as far as I can tell, based on the literature and conversations with other people, is fairly unique to the site. So it's a little bit like our site motif.
That is so cool. Well, thanks for sharing. And I'm just blown away. I want to see a close-up of, you know, like on red carpet shows where they have the little manicure cam, Manicam. Wow, FPAN's got to invest in a Manicam so we can highlight some of it. All right, any other brave souls out there want to share if they brought something to the party tonight? If not, I'll show you my toes. Save yourselves. All right, Sarah.
I promised on Twitter that I would do something, and I have to admit that I did not. So I apologize, but I'm going to be thinking about it, and maybe I'll try something later and share it on Twitter and tag you all.
Not to, like, you know, steal your thunder, but what would you be thinking? What, like, comes to your mind? Like, yeah, ceramic manicure, I could try.
Well, there are some really cute llama designs from Bolivia, from where I work. And they're basically just like smiley faces, but with big llama ears. And they're pretty simple. So I feel like that could go on a fingernail. Maybe not very artistic or beautiful, but.
Well, you already get bonus points for being a Sarah. Fantastic work there, and for being brave and admitting to us what, I mean, if I could share too, it was like an hour or two before the talk and all day knowing I had to get the manicure done, but board meetings, I'm starting to paint during the board meeting. So I hear you. It's chalk it up to 2020. Anyone else want to share what they have tried or done or would like to try? Or those toes are coming out, people. I deliberately bought blue and white nail polish.
Perfect. The
I
most
only have-
widely used,
Yeah.
at least in the British and imitation porcelain. Ah, nice.
Oh, I like that, Brenda. That's like a nice turquoise there. Oh, some gel. So we've got the paint ready. We've got some of the material started. And Brenda, I'm where you're at. And I bought I have red nail polish today. And there are, you could have Mexican red, or what's the other red burnished one that we have here in St. Augustine? Often joke with Kathy, that's what she's wearing that day. I did because Sarah Bon Harper is on the call, and I said if she came, I would do some Severn Maker's Mark on my toes. Prepare yourselves. This is not going to be pleasant for anybody because let's see, get my toes up here. I'll maybe bring the camera to the toes. Can you see? Can you see? Well, just know it's glorious. I'll work on getting my toes up to the camera later, but some attempts were made.
Thanks so much. That is fabulous. Yay, yay for props for that.
I tried on both sides.
Awesome. That's so cool.
We're like, oh, maybe she's not going to make the call. We're like, oh no, she's on the, she's got it. So,
Nope, and you did it. Yay.
Yeah, I'll post those on Twitter later. And you too, Sarah, I want to see those. All right, well, we've gone a little over an inspiration, but I think we're already talking about a little bit of the technology. And the technology could be as far as the ceramics and how they were made, and then getting into what kind of tools we used on the manicures to replicate. So let's see. This one might be fairly simple to go with. Is I have a orange micaceous, and it's a orange bodied ceramic, and hard to see here, but you can see in other ones. I also have a video of orange micaceous because the when you move it back and forth, you can see the shine of the mica chips that are naturally in there. And just for effect, I put in the ceramic label number off the Florida type collection. It's online, but that one's is a pretty similar, or pretty easy to do, and the technology is already built into the clay itself. How about you, Lindsay? You got any technology to kick us off?
Yes, I do. Can you pull up that, well, any of the slides really, and I can work from there. Any of my slides.
Which one?
I guess start with the one that has all the pottery sherds on it. I can show you what I'm working with in terms of my assemblage of fingers.
All right, give me a minute.
So I decided to go with a British assemblage from about 1750 to 1870. And we'll see my inspirations in a moment.
1 second. Hold up.
And a special one for Libby Cook, I think, judging from what she said in the chat.
Hold on. Getting there. Getting there. I went back to the actual one because I didn't pull them over. Where are they pasted in at?
I put them at the end, I think.
Oh, okay. Yes. Sarah took up a bit of room with the, I got it. I got it. Am I doing it? Am I sharing?
Almost. This is a PDF, it looks like, but is that what? That's fine.
Oh, I did download it. Two shakes of a leg here.
That's okay. So I have some shell edge. I have blue shell edge and green shell edge. Here we go. Which are sometimes generally called edgewares, and there are different varieties of them. Where sometimes the designs were really, there was molding and a lot of relief detail, and sometimes they're just painted. There's Wieldenware, which is one of my favorites. I like to call it pretty ugly because it's so ugly that it's kind of pretty. This one at the top that has the multiple colors. Below that is a transfer print from the aesthetic period. So it's the Victorian era. They got really into like botanical looking transfer prints. And so I did one like that. On the top right is some Jackfield ware with gilding. This is an earthenware that they put a really, really shiny black glaze on to make it look like lacquer that was coming from Asia, and adding these quote oriental motifs on it. Below that is spongeware, which I think someone said was their favorite, multiple colors of sponge. And below that, a transfer print with seaweed design. Again, those sort of natural motifs that are from the Victorian era, largely. Moving clockwise to the left is a slipware with a dendritic decoration. And dendritic is one of my favorites because the technology to make it is really cool. You add iron oxide or another colorant that's mixed with tobacco juice or urine or something acidic, and you put it on the clay or the slip base while the slip is still wet, and the slip base is alkaline, and you put this acidic thing on it, and it runs to try to escape the alkaline slip that it's on, and it creates this trailing pattern.
I'm hearing this voice too of the they're going, running away.
Yeah, it's also called mocha because it looks like after the Port Mocha in the Middle East, which is where moss agate was coming from, also coffee. But it looks like moss agate, so then it was called mocha after that. So long-winded. And then on the bottom left is a piece of Sèvres cornflower. The sherd here is how we usually find hand-painted porcelain. Archaeologically, it usually has ghosted, which is what we say when the paint has worn off over time in the ground. So there's a little hint at the top of this sherd of where it was originally painted, and that's sort of worn off. Similarly, the Jackfields, the blackware, the gilding has usually worn off by the time that we find it. So we don't.
I don't think I've ever seen a gilded piece.
Yeah, I've seen some that maybe had gilding. So if you go to the next slide, this is what my manicure currently looks like. So on my thumb is the mocha design. And I'll show you how I did that in a minute. I did it as a transfer print, not using tobacco juice or urine or anything like that. I don't think that would work with nail polish. And then my pretty ugly Wielden on my pointer finger, the two different kinds of shell edge, and the Sèvres, which is probably, I would say this is like a British imitation of French Sèvres, because the French did a much nicer job than the British. And so that's, most of these on my left hand are 18th century. Wielden is like 1740s. And then on my right hand, the thumb is the Jackfields with that Oriental design in gilding. And I did not, again, that's a transfer print, not hand painting. So I'm cheating a little bit, but getting the look that I wanted. And then there's a blue and a pink sponge that I did using a sponge. So very similar to the way it would have been done. And then my ring finger and middle finger are two transfer prints. So an aesthetic botanical one, and then a seaweed one with a little gilt edge to be extra authentic.
Amazing.
So if you want to see how the transfer print works, I can show you that. If you go to the next slide. So as Sarah said, one of the reasons that I find the nail art so fascinating is because it's an easy way to think about this technology and to replicate it in some cases. And the way that you create this transfer printed pattern on nails is very similar to the way that you create the transfer print on pottery. So this is a transfer print setup from the Victoria and Albert Museum in London. And so basically you start with your plate, your base, and you use an engraved copper plate that has the design. You add ink to it, and then transfer that inked pattern onto tissue paper. And then you cut the tissue paper and lay it onto the plate. And then the color transfers and you fire it and it's set. And so if we switch, and I'll show you my setup. So I have,
I'm going to speaker view so I can see you.
can you see?
Yeah.
Okay. So these are the etched plates, which are, again, very similar to the 18th century plates used to make transfer print. Sarah Young's, because you're here, I chose one that has bones on it. So let's see. Can you all see my workspace here? Let's move a little bit. So basically you just need some nail polish and one of these plates, which you can buy off the internet, where all good things come, especially in a pandemic.
We'll
And
put
then,
it in your comments.
what's that?
I'm putting it in the comments.
Yes. And so then you just add some ink or polish to the plate and scrape it across. So similar to if you've done block printing or something like that, you remove all the excess and you use a sticky thing that pulls up the ink while it's still wet. And so then you just plop it down and onto your nail and it makes the design. Can you see that?
Yes.
And so you can catch a lot of detail and do it really quickly, which is how they did it back in the day, because they were not about to waste a lot of time with designs like this. The transfer printing process was invented as a time-saving measure to imitate hand-painted porcelains and all these things that were coming from China and elsewhere that were very time-consuming and required skilled labor. And you could have a child do transfer printing. So yeah, it's really fun. And I highly encourage it. There's lots and lots of different designs available that aren't necessarily ceramic related, but will match whatever you're interested in. And they look super complicated, but they're not.
I'm now entirely pausing because I have made some poor choices and going second, but I will bring up some I had.
While we're waiting for, does anyone have any questions about any of my other nails? or inspiration.
Yeah, and just to share real quick the page. This is where the link takes you. And look, you can join a monthly box club. But which plates did you find helpful to start with?
So I got the ones that had animal bones because I just loved it. The one I originally started with this years ago, and it was a different kit that just had not historical looking designs, but I ended up with one that has some botanicals that has a nice seaweed. And I really wanted to do the seaweed. The mocha, I got one that's all different rocks. So it has like marble texture and the agate texture and other sort of geological looking things. There's one that has botanical stuff that's, I think I only have 4 or 5. So I'm not obsessed or anything. I only have.
I liked your email. I can stop anytime I want. Like, I think she cannot. I think not. Well, my other huge mistake was not having me go first, because that is some fine line work there. But I'll show a couple of the ones I have brought for this evening, but I do have some times I've done them in the past and for a different purpose. And checking on our time too, not doing too bad, although Emily Jane's like, what's the schedule you were supposed to be keeping on? I brought to you tonight some Isabela. So Isabela Polychrome is another one of the early Morisco Majolica types. And the first time I tried that one was during FAS. It was here in St. Augustine, and they had this homage to Isabela. And it was named, I believe, after the site Isabela in Haiti, where it was first found. And that's where a lot of these get their names from, is where the ceramic was first found, not necessarily where it was made, but it has these Arabic letters as inspiration across from there. And then I have had times where I've seen Isabela in the wild here in St. Augustine, and that's always a lot of fun. I did bring a zouave for you tonight. Oh, wait, a zouave is found on Isabela Poly and is kind of one of the muses that you can find. And Gifford Waters at the museum had said, oh, you got to do some abo. So this was my abo inspiration, pulled from different sherds that were in the St. Augustine type collection, just experimenting with the different dots and lobes. And this is a weird thing about Isabela Polychrome. It's got these balloons and these little lobes, but the blue blobs are not outlined in black, where all the other colors usually have some kind of outline in black. So that was something that I had read about, but again, in doing the hand-painted manicure. Another thing is that these colors are so specific, and you know when you have the wrong one. If you don't have the right yellow, the right green, the right blue, it starts to drive me crazy. So I put on Twitter earlier a picture, and I'm looking at them right now, although I cannot show you my room because it is Thursday, which means I'm going to clean my room on Saturday. But I have like 125 little soldiers over there trying to match the colors, because they do become so important. Oh, there's a zouave, and that's what I tried to bring you this evening, and in some little form there, but maybe done better when I had a little more time. I did do a Puebla Polychrome, and these are Puebla ceramics that are tin enameled, Majolica, but made in Mexico, and the designs are inspired from lace. So using another art form onto a ceramic that now becomes a manicure, and just thinking about all the different ways that art styles are transferred. And it's polychrome, but I think it's mostly just blue and black makes it, rather than singular, many colors. And I haven't seen a lot of things that vary from the blue and black. This one I didn't do for tonight, but Jennifer may remember in Pensacola was asked to give a talk and had painted my nails using this ceramic that was found in a single feature in Pensacola. I know Brenda Swan was one of the people who excavated it, and I didn't tell anybody. I waited until the questions, and then somebody asked. And yes, I am wearing Pensacola Polychrome and in your hometown. So it's a nice way to respect the places that you are visiting. And then I have another blog picture of that with the feature it came out of, and fun to reunite those who excavated with it. Let me see which else I'm wearing tonight. These are not me. This is by Miriam, who was on Twitter and did some faience rims. So she was experimenting with the French faience, which is stone enameled ceramic also that has very distinctive types decorated on the rims. So she was doing that, and she's no longer on Twitter. So if you can find her, sorry, I'm making some of you sick perhaps by rolling my scroll button. Oh, Kate, are you still on?
I am.
Oh, all right, Kate, I'll share. What are we looking at here?
Let's see.
Kate came to see me, and I've been telling her about my Majolica manicures and science transferred into manicures. And what did you say? Well, you requested something. What is this?
I did. So it's a central nervous system neuron that were famously stained using Golgi stain by Ramon y Cajal, and so it's based on one of his drawings.
And there he is, yeah.
And yeah, I actually was just looking, and there are other people who do this too. Golgi stain neuron nails. So.
Yeah, you were headed to a conference, right?
I was going to the Society for Neuroscience conference, so people loved them.
Did anyone notice your nails?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
More than my talk.
Well, see, that can be a tool. I especially recommend those who have conference anxiety. It's a great way to meet new people and yet have something else to talk about there. Here I did, because St. Augustine, I did a St. Augustine manicure, and it's named after a mission site in Texas. And somewhere I have a picture of me in front of an exhibit in Texas with it. For New Orleans, I thought it'd be fun to try and add in some beads along with my attempts at faience rims, which are actually quite hard and I don't recommend on the fly, but with some beads as well. These were devolved motifs from porcelain, and they started with some, tight, you can see on the left how this child was portrayed playing, and then it devolved after that into this more rustic form. So I did this manicure right before the SAAs in San Francisco, and it was just a neat dive into porcelain that I don't know as much about, the export porcelain, and I thought these devolved motifs were pretty fascinating, how they've changed over time. I did this one for you tonight, and the joke is, I tried for Joe Bagley. I tried so hard in Boston to recreate this beautiful ceramic type that he finds very often in and around Boston. And I tried straws, I tried pens, I tried everything I could. And then finally what got it to work the way I wanted was this, I bent my name badge and dipped it in yellow, and it started to behave. But tonight on the fly, and it's true, I usually don't start these until I'm headed to the airport or just arrived at the hotel, and I got it to work just fine with one of the dotting tools. I'm like, oh. So Fresh for You Tonight is one of those. I didn't do this one, but that's another Selena wear that I did for when SHA was in Fort Worth.
Here's one for Sarah, or for Brenda. Oh, Brenda's working on it.
Is she there? Oh, there.
I'm playing with my salt glazed stoneware. Let's see if I can do this. Here we go. Hold on. Here we go. A little bit of
And then my son, I didn't even think about it. My son I've never painted my nails probably in like 20 years. So my 5-year-old is sitting here going, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm painting my nails. And he's like, what is that? So I was like, I put gray down for the salt glaze, and then I have the blue. So I was doing that. And he was like, well, what about blue and white? And I was like, oh, of course, tin glazed, that's awesome. So now I was just applying the blue and white. And then I tried a mocha pattern over here, or I guess I could say maybe a little engine turn, but not quite. So yeah, I was like, oh, I'll listen to you guys chat and I'll lay my base layers.
Perfect.
Well, fantastic, Brenda. Thank you for
I
sharing.
blame you, Lindsay.
Let's see, just a few more to show in the gallery, and then we'll hop on to the end of the tools. These are just some other ones usually done in advance of conferences. FPAN does work its way in. And this is one of my favorites I did before going to EAAs in Barcelona, and was inspired by Gaudi and wanted to try and do some of that tiling. So I think there are 37 colors that are in this manicure, and the only way that made sense after a while was to try and make them all uniform. So you'll see that I used a dotting tool, and the dots show up uniformly on each nail. This is an underwater one, the Erebus, and I should really look into Lindsay's transfer printing kit, because I blew it on the willow ware motifs, but tried to add the rest stained feel with a sponge afterwards. It's a marine ware that went okay, but
Here's one for Sarah here. Her.
yeah, what do you see, Sarah? I have to unshare my screen so I can see if she's there. So some Crow Canyon pieces there. And let's see. This is a good one to end on, if one's going to end on one. You may have heard of Calamity Ware. And it's a fun contemporary wear just to show robots and UFOs and tentacles and poodles, zombie poodles. And for one of the FPAN staff meetings, I did Calamity Ware on each nail. And now Emily Jane just gifted to me a Calamity Ware red mug, so I can add that to the mix.
It's Christmas. It's Attack of the Gingerbread Men and giant toads and Christmas hats. So
I think I got most of mine shown that are on my fingers. I tried some Rockingham ware that we find. A lot of spittoons are the brown and the yellow mixed. And someone said, it might not have been like Ben Franklin, but they said the symbol of America should not be an eagle. It should be a spittoon, just for how frequent they are found in public buildings and spaces. And in Kentucky, we excavated the Capitol site, and it had like 400 spittoons. It was just really crazy and gross. I tried a chrome. If you're not familiar with chrome, it's a powder that you put on a wet nail, and it looks like shiny glass. And we were on a dig with the Tippo's office doing some outreach, and one of the teachers showed up and her nails were like this. So even though it's not archaeologically found, you can see how some of the chrome might be. And it had
Well, it looks like lusterware. I think
yeah, you can do the purple. And so I have that kit to show. It is nasty though. You want to use it outside, because you paint black or whatever base color, and then these little canisters have evil glitter, evil micro glitter, and then you use like an eyeshadow applicator to push and dry it around. And I can tell when I have left my house and some friends come to house sit, and then I'll see the glitter all over the back table. I'm like, they got into the chrome. And then a final one for Lindsay, making sure this is my final, is Lindsay, what's that?
I can't tell. Sorry.
I'll bring up an email. We had someone from Boston that had a mystery shirt.
Oh, it's the maybe French one or Swiss one.
Potential Swiss. yeah, trying to see where it shows up.
So it's a slipware.
But I had never even really thought about it. Oh, yep, I found the pictures. So that'll be my last screen share. And then, hold on, scrolling. Yeah, so it happens to you often as archaeologists. You enjoy these mystery sherds like, oh, yeah, I don't have any idea. So these are the photos sent to us. And there were all sorts of guesses of santonge or marine ware, or it just had this weird paste for it to be a Majolica, but they felt it was tin enamel. And then Lindsay, what picture did you send?
I think it was a picture from the V&A of some continental redware that has that, and often has it has opacifiers added to the slip, which can create sort of what will look like a tin enamel but isn't a true tin enamel. So I think that it's a continental redware from like Switzerland, Austria, Eastern France.
And I had never seen that before, so I was like blown away. Like, look what Lindsay knows just from looking at the stuff, and then it's got that. So let me, you guys can start asking some questions if you want, and I'm going to see if I can find that sherd that she pulled up.
Is anyone inspired from their project region or area of interest, archaeological or not? Or are there other crafts that you do that are related to the things that you study or the work that you do?
I see your question, Eleanor. I'll get to it in a second.
Lindsay, did you ask if we do other kinds of crafting?
Mm-hmm.
So I have attempted to do a structured knit to replicate a pottery vessel that I found on site. I've never finished it though. And then I've done some like cross stitch and embroidery of patterns for fun.
I like the idea too, Sarah, but of using the Sharpie.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. We had a question to re-show the Texas Spanish colonial ceramic, and I'll use that opportunity to show the V&A plate that Lindsay came up with. And I just had never seen anything like that. So that was my attempt with my thumb to thank Lindsay for her efforts in helping identify and find the mystery sherd. Mystery sherds would be hard to keep up with Majolicas, with manicures, because you don't always know how they were made. So the Spanish colonial, I did one stapple with glass. This is a Chagall in Chicago, and I thought, oh, it'll be fun, I'll do my toes, and then found out toes are nasty in pictures. And I had this idea, like, I'll hold them up to the stained glass and they'll look great. It did not look great. It looked really horrible. Also, you can do in the dark. You can do Guinness inspired when you travel. And I'm getting back up to the Galena. Is this the one you meant, Eleanor? I can't see the comment. Okay. Oh, I still like the idea of trying to throw a pot.
Yeah, I think it's really like we so often are working with collections, but it's really changes the way you think about the artifacts when you try to replicate it. I think it's a reason why experimental archaeology continues to be a thing, because there's something about the physicality of trying to do something or replicate something that gives you insight into how it was made previously and the effort that went into it, and more of a connection, a human connection to the artifact.
Just a few closing thoughts. And I'll show these and then go to any final questions. But just thanking everyone for coming and thinking of ceramics and ways to engage with them and other ways that bring them into our current landscape. These are some shell edge that we used for some holiday photos from our office for a while. That's thrown in there. That's Santa Elena from after Menendez founded St. Augustine, he went up to Santa Elena, and that's another sponged shirt just thrown in there. And this is for Halloween one year. Our office used archaeology-inspired themes, and I was Isabela Poly with my blue balloon without an outline. And Emily Jane, you want to share what you were for Halloween? I don't have a photo of it though.
I was a common pre-contact pottery that we find in Florida called St. John's check stamp. So it's a sponge spiculed paste, and then it has the check stamping. So I wore like a waffle shirt, and I put sponges in as shoulder pads.
Excellent. Well, we'll draw our night to a close, but we can have a Majolica Manicure reunion in time just to see what people have been inspired by and tried. Oh, some good questions. What tools are helpful? So, Lindsay, you've got the plates. I found a couple things that I use. Lots of nail polish remover. That's a good thing to have nearby. I have these stencils. They don't work as great. So I think Lindsay's is a big improvement, but that idea of how to get that small detail on there. I use some of the pens. They sell some of the, what do they call them? Nail art pens. And that can give you a little bit more fine lines, although it's still not as fine as, if you find any of these guys, these are really great because they have really long brushes. So you can get some really fine lines just because they trail off nice. And let's see if I can tear my office apart and just show how the lines, so it really will help you get some really nice tight small lines if you want to work with that, because usually my left hand is a little better because of my right hand control, but it's surprising what you try with your left hand that will work better and on your right hand. I use these dotting tools, and they have a small little nub on one side and a larger nub on the other. The dots are good, but the crazy tricky Boston one, I have to send this to Joe tonight. He'll be screaming. I just use that with a dotting tool in like 2 minutes compared to my 4 days of trying to figure out what would make that nice bent yellow pattern. Any kind of brushes. I don't know if you guys get like little like makeup kits from people who maybe should not be sending me makeup kits for Christmas, but I steal all the little brushes out of there, or at TJ Maxx, you can find a lot of different kind of brushes, and then use some of those. Ooh, sorry, I'm getting distracted by all the fun things in there. And there's this stripe. Did you use stripe tape, Lindsay, on any of yours? On there to make the black line. You're muted.
Sorry, I taped off the areas with tape. I didn't use the tape as the color, but I used it to create the areas.
I got this at Sally's for like $4, and it's got all these different stripes. I think you can use them to leave them on as different colored stripes, but also use them to peel off as guides. And this is unopened. I haven't even used it, but I thought, oh, that might be a good thing to use. Also, Michael's has some cute like little mini plates. Glue them onto your fingers. That could be good. I've heard of folks doing, you know, 3D printed press-ons, or the Jamberry. It's just hard because I think part of what you're enjoying is making the art of it as well, and with the matching colors, and not a lot of Jamberries yet. are in archaeology themed packages that they might be. Is the dotting tool for nails something else? These are in your Sally's. This one just came in a pack of like 4 or 5 of them, and they're really helpful. I usually dot on a piece of paper first. Let me grab it real quick.
I will say, Brenda, they're exactly the same as the incising tool that you can get for pottery that has the little ball at the end. So same thing.
Yeah, and usually when I'm using the dotting tool, I make a big splotch and then I just transfer the dot from there, and it'll tack up on you. It'll get a little harder, but yep. Good. Well, thank you. Excellent questions, and thanks for joining us tonight. This is one of our last public programs of the whole year, 2020. We're survivors. We did it. We did it together. So thanks to all you guys for coming to hang out with us tonight. And I'll stick on the line if anyone has final story or comment, but class dismissed. And thank you to Lindsay for joining us tonight, from giving us some credibility with UF Ceramic Labs. Very cool. Oh, and there's a cutie. I see your cutie, Sarah Rowe. Hi. But Happy New Year.
Thanks, everyone.
Colin.
Good to see you all.
Good night. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Monty.